Welcome to World Alert Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. Breaking news: U.S. Warthogs on Polish border. Russia shocked by NATO's bold move. The morning of October 25, 2025, began with an unnatural, menacing growl over the quiet fields of eastern Poland. Villagers near Rzeszów-Jasionka airport looked up, stunned, as dozens of A-10 Thunderbolt IIs, Warthogs, swept in low and aggressive. No warning, no announcement. One moment the border was tense but stable. The next, it was the front line of a dramatic escalation. The sound was unforgettable, a guttural roar vibrating in the chests of everyone on the ground. The sight of these legendary aircraft, flying in force so close to Kaliningrad and Belarus, sent an unmistakable message. Moscow was caught completely off guard. Russian intelligence had missed the massive operation. This was more than a military maneuver. It was a political statement, a bold line in the sand. The Warthogs, battered and battle-hardened, landed one by one as ground crews swarmed them. The air filled with jet fuel and the clatter of tools. These were not shiny new jets, but tough, resilient machines. For Polish soldiers watching, it was a moment of profound significance. A powerful ally had arrived. The day had just begun, but the geopolitical landscape had already shifted. The world was wide awake, and the quiet dawn was shattered. The Warthogs' arrival was a symbol. NATO was ready to defend its eastern flank. The message was clear: any threat from the east would be met with overwhelming force. The Polish border was no longer just a line on a map. It was now the front line of NATO's resolve. The shockwave from this deployment rippled across Europe and straight into the Kremlin. The world watched, breath held, as the balance of power in Eastern Europe was redrawn. The Warthogs had landed, and nothing would be the same. The new reality had arrived with a roar. The A-10 Warthog is more than an aircraft. It's a legend forged for one purpose: to destroy tanks. Born in the Cold War, the A-10 was NATO's answer to the threat of Soviet armor rolling across Europe. Built around the GAU-8 Avenger, a 7-barrel Gatling gun, firing 30mm depleted uranium rounds. It's a flying gun, famously tough. The pilot sits in a titanium bathtub, engines mounted high to avoid ground fire, and the Warthog can take incredible damage and still fly home. Ground troops love it. Its presence means help has arrived. In the Gulf War, A-10s destroyed over 900 tanks and thousands of vehicles, earning the nickname Tank Killer. Its distinctive brrr became a sound of terror for enemies and hope for allies. Deploying A-10s to Poland is a deeply symbolic act. This isn't about stealth or air superiority, but raw, unapologetic power. The message to Moscow: NATO is ready to counter a ground invasion, resurrecting Cold War logic. Any armored push through the Suwałki Gap would face the same fate as Iraqi tanks. The Warthog's presence is a warning. NATO's resolve is real, and its firepower unmistakable. The legend is back, and it's here to stay. The Warthog's arrival was the climax of Operation Iron Bore, a secret, flawlessly executed plan. Weeks before, only the most watchful noticed A-10s moving from storage to maintenance hangars. Most dismissed it as routine, but it was the start of a massive logistical puzzle. At night, C-17 cargo planes quietly ferried disassembled Warthogs and equipment to Poland, using indirect routes and radio silence. In Poland, US and Polish crews worked around the clock, reassembling the fleet in secured hangars. GAU-8 cannons were installed, pylons loaded with missiles and bombs. The operation was hidden from public view and satellites until the last moment. The goal: maximum surprise and psychological impact. At dawn, hangar doors opened. Fully armed A-10s taxied out, engines roaring. The first squadron took off, announcing their presence to the world. Local authorities were informed only hours before. Security was airtight. By the time Russian intelligence caught on, the Warthogs were already airborne. The element of surprise was total. The strategic game had changed overnight. The skies of Eastern Europe now belonged to NATO's tank killers. Operation Iron Bore was a master class in military deception. News of the Warthog deployment spread like wildfire, igniting strong reactions across Europe. In Poland, shock turned to reassurance. A-10s on their soil meant NATO solidarity was real. In the Baltics, relief replaced fear. The alliance's Article 5 commitment was now backed by unmistakable firepower. Moscow responded with fury and alarm, launching propaganda and lodging formal protests. Russian media called it provocation. the Kremlin vowed a firm response. Western leaders supported the move but urged restraint. While markets dipped on rising tensions, the world watched, anxious. What would Russia do next? The deployment of a few dozen aging aircraft had become the focal point of global geopolitics. The region was on edge, waiting for the next move. The A-10s wasted no time. They began patrols over the Suwalki Gap, NATO's most vulnerable corridor. This narrow stretch links the Baltics to the rest of the alliance, flanked by Kaliningrad and Belarus. Military strategists have long feared a Russian move to cut off the Baltics. Here, Warthog patrols sent a direct message. This gap would not be taken easily. Flying low and slow, the A-10s loitered along the border, visible from both sides. Their presence was a persistent deterrent, a warning to any armored forces massing nearby. Russian radar operators faced a nightmare. Slow, rugged targets hugging the terrain, straining their defenses. Each brrrr from a Warthog's cannon during exercises echoed across the border. These patrols weren't just for show, they gathered intelligence, mapped troop movements, and fed real-time data to NATO command. The Warthogs became the eyes and ears of the alliance. The Suwalki Gap was now guarded by NATO's most feared tank killers. Any move against it would be seen and met with overwhelming force. The message: the gap is closed. The A-10 deployment was just the beginning. NATO launched massive joint exercises, codenamed Iron Spear. These drills integrated the Warthogs into alliance defense plans, simulating rapid response to a cross-border incursion. Polish, Lithuanian, and American forces practiced calling an airstrike, with A-10s swooping in on mock enemy tanks. The focused seamless air-ground coordination under pressure. JTACs relayed target coordinates. Warthogs rolled in for simulated gun runs. Repeated drills honed communication and readiness for real conflict. For local troops, training with A-10s was a morale boost and invaluable experience. American pilots learned the terrain and weather of Eastern Europe. Operation Iron Spear involved over a dozen NATO nations. British tanks, German artillery, French infantry, all working together. The sight of this multinational force sent a powerful signal of unity and resolve. NATO's shield was in place, its spear sharpened. The alliance's commitment was now a tangible reality. The eastern flank was ready. Moscow's response was swift. Public outrage, covert escalation. Official statements condemned NATO's aggression, while state media painted Russia as the victim. Behind the scenes, Russia's military went on high alert. S-400 missile batteries moved into Kaliningrad and Belarus. Fighter jets patrolled the border, and armored units shifted closer to NATO lines. Cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns targeted Poland and the alliance, spreading rumors and sowing division. Russia and Belarus launched snap military drills opposite the Suwalki Gap, simulating defensive and clearly offensive operations. Thousands of troops, live fire barrages, and massed armor mirrored NATO's moves. The border became a checkerboard of opposing forces, each daring the other to act. The standoff was now a tense, high-stakes game. The world watched as the military chessboard filled. The A-10's arrival transformed Eastern Europe into a psychological battlefield. For NATO troops, the Warthogs overhead turned anxiety into confidence, a visible promise of support. On the Russian side, tension and unease grew. The threat of facing the Warthog's cannon was real. Every drill and patrol carried the implicit threat of devastating firepower. Moscow's planners were forced to rethink their strategies. A rapid armored thrust now looked far riskier. Civilians felt the tension, some reassured, others fearful. Their towns were now on the front line. Russian disinformation tried to exploit these fears, aiming to divide and demoralize. The psychological battle was for both soldiers and civilians, hearts and minds. The deployment was a masterclass in deterrence, targeting Russia's ground force advantage with a blunt, terrifying symbol. The Warthog speaks a universal language of power. By placing it on Russia's doorstep, NATO aimed to instill doubt and hesitation in its adversary. The psychological impact was as real as any weapon. The new Iron Curtain was drawn in the mind as much as on the map. Eastern Europe stands at a crossroads. A-10s patrol the skies. Russian forces remain on alert. The region is stable, but fragile. A single misstep could spark disaster. For Poland, this is a moment of sober resolve. History has taught them the price of complacency. The presence of American forces is seen as the ultimate guarantee against past horrors. NATO's core principle, an attack on one is an attack on all, is being tested as never before. The Warthog's deployment reinforces that promise. Backing down now would shatter credibility. Both sides are cornered, making de-escalation difficult. Diplomats search for an off-ramp, but the hardware remains in place. The world watches, hoping for peace but preparing for the alternative. The next move will decide Europe's future.